Good morning, good morning. It's a grey morning, but it's going to cheer up. Oh, to be in England. So, how are you? I hope you're well. Which way am I going to go? Which way am I going to go? I'll go the windy bendy way, because it might be... Ooh, I don't know. There's too much of a queue that way. A queue? A queue in my road? That can't be right. There's too many agricultural vehicles around at the moment. They're probably stuck behind a tractor. We don't want that, do we? Yeah, so as I say, I hope you're well. I haven't recorded for a while because there's not really been much to tell. Plus I go in the other car, which doesn't have a CCTV camera, so you can't enjoy the ride. The lovely ride through the lush and beautiful English countryside. So green. So many apples. Those are all apple trees in bud at the moment. So I've got a few little stories to tell you today. It's all about service sector and service standards and stuff like that. And these are just things that have happened to me, and every day's a learning day, so we've decided to share it with you because I've learned a few things from how I'm treated. It sort of teaches me a lot about how we treat other people. And so one quick one was that every time I have to make a doctor's appointment, I have to answer a quick question about everything. They try and get as much information out of you as they possibly can, including a ton of stuff that's not really relevant. So I'll give you a good example. Being a pre-diabetic or diabetic type 2, whatever you want to call it, they ask you a load of questions that they ask every diabetic. And one of those questions is, are you suffering from sexual dysfunction? Well, I know sexual dysfunction is or can be a symptom of diabetes. I don't know why at 65 or 66 that will be all that important. Probably a question for the younger diabetics. But that's led me to understand that when we do our survey online, we when people want to book an appointment, they ring up and say, I'd like to book an appointment. And we say, what we'll do is we'll send you a link. It's a short online survey. You can let us know your best times and dates and what you're coming in for, etc. And then we'll make an appointment and send that out. Well, I mean, that's very important with the new patients. Not so important with the normal, the regular patients. But it does force them to answer a couple of questions about whether or not they've had any illnesses in the last, like whether they got COVID. Basically, it's a hangover from COVID. But it's got probably, I'd say, 20% of the questions we could probably take out at a pinch. And so we need to make it easier for them. We don't need to ask them every time they make an appointment whether they prefer speed or low cost or high quality. So what else? So that's it. So learn from your experience with other people. Now, another experience I had was with the garage up the end of this road, where so I put the car in. Where did I put the car in? There's something wrong with the car. I can't remember. This is bloody blood pressure tablets. My memory's gone. Anyway, we had the car in for something, and oh, that's right, yeah, the brakes. The brakes were grinding on this car, and so it doesn't matter how quickly you take the car in, they still tell you need new discs. So you don't just get new pads, you have to end up with new discs. So the whole thing ended up costing about 600 quid. And they said, oh, you need 3 new tyres. So I said, well, look, sometimes when you say to a garage, can you get me 3 new tyres? Oh, I haven't got my microphone on. normally they say, well, look, we don't do tyres here, so why you'd be better off going up the tyre place and getting your tyres done, because all we do is we take your car up the tyre place and get your tyres done, and we add like 10% on because we've had to pay for a bloke to go to take the thing up the tyre place. Anyway, right, okay. So I've been on my speed awareness course. So I said, look, don't worry about the tyres. I said, I'll do the job of taking out the tyre place. So, oh, hang on, I've got my Bluetooth turned off. Oh, I don't know how this works. So so I said, don't worry about that. I'll take it up and get the tyres done. So I took it up, got the tyres done, and then eventually I had a look at the bill, and they charged me for the environmental disposal of 3 tyres, £3.30 a tyre, which is 10% more than if I'd just taken them up the dump. So I rang them up and I said, in the end you didn't do the tyres, and you've taken the tyres off the invoice, but you haven't taken the environmental disposal of my old tyres off the invoice, which obviously they should have done. So he then said he'd have a look, and he rang me back and he said, oh yeah, he said, you're quite right, we've taken it off, but I've also realised that we didn't charge you for environmental disposal of your old brake pads. So basically, he's going to offset the $9.90 I wanted back with a $5.90 charge he's just found for that he said he'd left off. Now, there's tons of points to be made out of this. One is that obviously they're not very careful with their invoices at all, are they? Secondly, he wasn't going to charge me for environmental disposal. It was one of those. It's £5.90, and honestly, if after a patient had left and paid their bill and gone away happy, I found out that we'd undercharged them by $5.90, I would 100% have told reception just to write it off. You don't pursue people for that. And in fact, it's quite true, he probably wasn't going to pursue me for it. But the point was that when he found that he owed me $9.90, he decided to let me know that he was going to offset it by the $5.90 he'd undercharged me. And so obviously that, on an emotional level, that pisses you off, doesn't it? That pisses me off. I'm thinking I'm getting $9.90 and I'm only going to get £4 because he's found this thing. Now, another point is that I don't know anything about environmental disposal charges. I think he's only happy doing it because it's less than the $9.90 I was claiming. I mean, he could have said, oh, actually now I've just realised there's an environmental disposal charge for, I don't know, the gloves that the technician used, and that's £40. And so, in fact, you owe me 31 quid. But he wouldn't have done that because he knows that he would never have got the 31 quid. So, while I don't suspect that he's dishonest, I do question his judgment in not just refunding the £9.90. That's the difference between your provincial garage and the Savoy, where they'll just say, I'm so sorry, sir, we'll get that rectified straight away. And that's really what you want to hear, isn't it? So, from the service point of view, apart from charging me 600 quid to do my front brakes, and everything's 600 quid. I backed into a lamppost the other day and broke a rear quarter light, and that cost 600 quid. And so now I've got to take my brakes in, that's cost 600 quid. And yet a bloke has come in yesterday with a crown come off and needs a new crown, and I've told him that's 600 quid, and he's like, oh, I don't know, I'll have to wait and see, I'll have to save up for it over a few months, blah 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 blah. So I'm not, £600 is the new £300. You remember when I went to Tunbridge Wells and got my teeth done, And I said that every time I went, I had to pay 300 quid. So £300 at the crown prep, £300 at the crown fit, £300 when I had 2 fillings done. It's every time I went, it was 1 hour, £300. So he's charging £300 an hour, okay? So it's pretty obvious that's what he's doing. So these guys are charging £600 a job now, not an hour, a job. So, and the crown, I think, is much more of a, I know it takes about an hour, but I mean, I think it's much more of a job than it is an hour. So £600 a job, I don't think is now unreasonable. I'm going to start thinking if somebody comes in and they've got a problem, and it's an appreciable problem. Like, for example, I've got a bloke who came in yesterday with his post crown had fallen out. It wasn't one of mine. It was a crap post crown, and it's overloaded because he's wearing dentures and he's only got 2 or 3 teeth left, and so his post crown is overloaded. And I stuck it back in for him, and he said to me, "Can I charge you anything?" And I said no. But I said no because I said I'm so cross. If I was going to charge you anything, I'd probably charge you 5,000 quid. And that's the third story I've got for you, which is I've got 2 chairs, 2 Anthos A6 chairs made in Italy. Now I don't buy anything made in Italy. I would not buy an Alfa Romeo or anything, Lamborghini, Ferrari, you name it. I wouldn't buy anything made in Italy. And for that part, I probably wouldn't buy anything that was made and mainly used in California. And the reason is that the environment in which these things are designed, manufactured and used is so foreign to the UK environment that really they're not, and they're actually like, they can only be regarded as sort of temporary purchases. It's like if you bought an Alfa Romeo and parked it on your drive, and then after a couple of years went back and complained that it was getting rusty, the Alfa Romeo people would say, the ones in Italy anyway, they would say, rusty? Well, how could it have got rusty? It only rains about 1 day a year. And you're like, no, this one's in the UK. And they're like, oh, well, if you're going to use it in the UK, then you deserve what you get. So, I've inherited these 2 Anthos A6 chairs. And unfortunately, they had a upgrade, a redesign, a remodel in about 2005, I think, 2006. So the thing about dental chairs is that they go on forever. I don't even understand why dentists buy new dental chairs. They don't ever stop working, and if they do stop working, they're very easy to repair. Now my problem is that Anthos now has only got one authorised distributor in the UK, which is the American firm Henry Schein. And Henry Schein's a massive firm. Too massive in my opinion. Too massive for their own good. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't like massive firms, but I think their size is working against them now. And they use the very, very old-fashioned, restrictive practice of being the only authorised dealer in the UK for a particular brand, and therefore the only place that you can get spares is through them. And if you order spares through them, they will get them. They will order them direct from Anthos, so it takes a while. But they tell you that if you order spares through them and they turn out not to be the right part, then that's, as far as they're concerned, there's no refunds, So you have to be very careful about making sure that you tell them what chair you've got and what serial number it is, which we have done. I mean, I've lost count of the times I've been on the phone to Henry Schein and they said, can you tell me the serial number of your chair? And I'm like, well, yeah, but you've got it already on your notes. This is the 4th time you've asked me. So we're very careful. What we had was they've got these water bottles on them which are constantly bursting. And I think these water bottles were part of the 2005-2006 redesign, because they went to a different system. It used to be screw top and now they're bayonet fitting, which is quicker, but the bottles are more robust and they don't keep splitting open like the old bottles did. Now the problem was we couldn't get the old bottles. The old screw top bottles, they run out of stock and weren't supplying them anymore. So we said, all right then, well, we'll have these chairs converted to bayonet fittings. So what you've got to do is literally a bottle. It's only two lines. It's an air line and a water line. The air goes in, pressurizes the bottle, and the water comes out, right? So there we go. So they're right, okay. We'll replace the bottle adapters on the chair, and then you can use the new type bottles. In the meantime, a solenoid went on the chair. It was the main water input solenoid, and the solenoid basically has got two things. It's got water in and out, and it's got electricity in and out. And when it's energized, it opens the solenoid and the water comes through. In other words, the main water supply is turned on, and then when you click a switch and turn the chair off at night, the solenoid, it becomes unpowered, and so it shuts, and so then that stops any water going through to the chair, which, I mean, in the old days would probably just have turned the spittoon off, but these days I suppose it's to stop leaks and stuff like that. Technically I would say you don't even really need it. So cut a long story short, because I know you're getting bored at this point, even if you're listening to this at 1.4 speed and cutting out the silences. They made us 2 engineer visits, and it's Thursday today, so Tuesday and Wednesday, and we rang them up and we said we don't need 2 engineer visits. In the meantime, we've got the solenoid, we've got the bottle adapters and the new bottles. So, and I looked at this and I thought to myself, I could fit all this. And that's really what I wanted to do initially. I wanted to fit it all because, you know, I can do that. It's not a problem. Any idiot with a little bit of knowledge about dental chairs, which is every dentist who's been qualified 40 years, could do this. But no, they insisted that their engineer do it. Now, I'll tell you why later. The first engineer turned up, and he was the one who was supposed to fit the bottles. He took one look at the bottles and said that they won't fit. He said they're not the right bottles, and even if they are the right bottles, then we've got the wrong chair for the bottles, etc., etc. So, well, we said, well, look, don't worry, because, you know, okay, you won't do the bottles, but at least there's the solenoid. Can you at least fit the solenoid? And he's like, oh, I'm not really here to fit the solenoid, you know, but I suppose, you know, I'm not gonna turn up, refuse to fit the bottles and the solenoid and go home again. He said, I don't want you're going to get charged a load of money for this. And I'm like, no, we're not. So he fits the solenoid rather badly, you know, without securing it to the chair, and with a lot of harumphing about other things on the chair, and then blow me. So what happened was the next day, assuming that they'd cancelled the second engineer visit on the basis that the solenoid had been fitted and the bottles were wrong type, I took a look at these bottles, and it seemed to me that was a piece of cake to fit the bottles. They're not a problem. They are backwards compatible. but apparently not if you're a Henry Schein Jobsworth who won't touch anything. So anyway, I've got the chair in bits and I'm just busy fitting these bottles, which take about 30 minutes. And halfway through the job, what happens? Another Henry Schein engineer turns up. So he's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm fitting the bottles. Your bloke yesterday said that they couldn't be fitted, but they can, so I'm fitting them. And he's like, well, he said, I can't do it for two reasons. One is the engineer yesterday, who was my boss, says it can't be done, right? Even though it can be done. And he said the other thing is that obviously now you've touched it, you've started the job. He said I can't really finish it. Now, when you've got a couple of old chairs, what you want is you want a can-do engineer. You don't want a can't-do Jobsworth engineer. So what happened was he stayed there for about an hour, and I suspect he was only staying there for an hour so that he can say he was on site for an hour, because he's going to put through a call-out fee, and I'm going to not pay it. So, plus he got a godful from me about engineers who go away and say, you know, well, this can't be, I can't fit this but if you're handy and you could drill a few holes, you could probably fit this yourself if you're a bit handy. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I effing wanted in the first place. I wanted to fit it myself, but because you were on a job creation scheme, courtesy of Anthos and Henry Schein, you think that you're going to get paid for doing nothing, and you're not. That's not how it works. And really, they rely on their central department, don't they? Their oh, hello, drug deal going on there. Yeah, they rely on their department, you know, their service department to coordinate it. And the service department is obviously rubbish, you know. I mean, they must have their computer system must be worse than mine. I've never had two patients turn up at the same time for an appointment, and yet they managed to send out two engineers for the same job, or for the two jobs a day apart, when one engineer could have done it all. Anyway, long shot is the first engineers fitted the solenoid. I finished fitting the solenoid by, you know, putting the bracket on that secured it to the chair, etc. Second engineer didn't, by his own admission, touch anything, and I told him to write on his job sheet that it was a duplicate visit and a complete waste of time, and that was the only thing that I would sign. And all's well that ends well, because we've got one of the chairs has got the bottle fitted and the solenoid fitted, so we got that back in service. And the other one, the old bottle's still working, but when that bottle blows up, then we'll retrofit the new bottle adapter and bottle to it, and we'll be fine till the next thing that happens. But at least we can get the bottles. At least they don't insist on sending engineers around to fit the bottles. So we can order bottles without having to spend £400 for some numpty to come from wherever. Anyway, so that's service. You know, remember the old saying, the angry saying, to be good at something, you don't have to be good, you just have to be not crap. And my garage is a good margin, but crap sometimes. And Henry Schein, I think they're set up really to sell new surgeries. They're like, you know, oh, this chair, the problem is your chair's very old, you know, your problem is your chair's very old. And I'm like, I'm very old, you know, I'm 66. I said, make a financial case for me to buy a new chair. You know, in terms of how much it'll cost, plus installation, plus VAT, plus, and how many years it'll take me to pay that back. And he's like, yeah, I suppose so. So Henry Schein are not, I would say, for anything, unless you've bought it, you know, from Henry Schein in the last 5 or 10 years, I would not get Henry Schein to repair anything. But unfortunately, I've got no choice because I've got these Anthos chairs. But I shall increasingly have to source stuff on the grey market, won't I? Which is going to get more and more difficult. It's a classic case of Henry Schein working against the profession and not with them. They're not. You know, they're working in their own interests and not in the interests of their customers. And no business really lasts a very long time if they do that. All right, lovely. Nice to talk to you. I'll see you soon. Bye.